The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of pits of despair. So get ready, nerds, because we're talking the classic Princess Bride. Welcome, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us on this very special episode. This is one of the best movies ever made, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. We've never talked about this movie yet.
Kadish picked two very good movies for this week.
Extremely excellent movies.
Buddy.
I'm going to introduce him first because it's his birthday week. Welcome, Kadish. How you doing, buddy?
Friendless, brainless, worthless. I'm going to leave you all unemployed in Greenland, where I found you, where you were so poor you couldn't buy brandy.
He's
so
not
stinking drunk.
Yeah, so like this was my birthday week picks, where like basically I was like, you know what? I want to choose two movies I absolutely love, and I want to enjoy them with my friends. And so the first one is the absolute classic. It's a movie that's so close to my heart. I love it. I watch it multiple times a year. It's just it's one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. And so like I'm very happy to get to talk to you guys about it.
So am I. Jude is also here.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, Princess Buttercup, Matt Vader.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Princess
No,
Buttercup.
I look badass when I wear the wig.
Okay.
You look
Okay.
pretty too.
Like
All right.
pretty. It's like it needs. Yeah, I need to like blonde. I need to like dye
No.
my whiskers blonde. No. Yeah.
I could bleach your whiskers.
You are the fairest podcaster in the land, my friend.
I am. Like, when I wear the
You look like-
when I wear the wig, I feel special.
I feel pretty.
I feel pretty. I do. I feel pretty.
Let's
It
take a
is just-
picture for the,
I already
for the
did.
Discord.
Jesus.
I already
Did
did.
you already put it in?
I was doing that right now.
All right,
You
guys.
had true love and you let it go.
No. He said to blame.
This is one of the most quotable movies.
Oh my God.
Like you'll quote lines from this movie and not even know it.
I could quote this entire movie if we just sat down and watched it together. I really could. This
Yeah.
movie's amazing.
I mean it.
Yeah.
Anybody want a peanut?
Anybody? No more rhymes now. I mean it. All right, guys. So obviously, this is going to be a great episode. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back. We're going to sell you something real quick, and then we're going to talk about The Princess Bride.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable. You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, if you guys want to support us, head over to saltynerdsstore.com. We've got t-shirts all over the place there with many different fun designs. Some of them you can't even wear in public. So go over there and grab yourself a t-shirt for bedtime because you're not going to wear it outside of the house. Like 80s Tits is a great one. Also Boob Stalker and Sex Machine.
You can wear those
I
outside
mean,
the
you
house.
can, but who's going to? Special announcement. Jude does. Special announcement. We now have hats. You can order now a Salty Nerd Podcast black hat with the logo in the center. We're getting ours shipped in very soon, so we'll be able to show you guys on screen what they're going to look like. But head over there to saltynerdsstore.com, type in Salty in the checkout counter and get 10% off your purchase. Hats are there. So we'd love to sell you guys some hats. It's been requested many, many times. So we'd like to thank the guys over there at Mixed Tees for making that happen for us.
And since we're talking about t-shirts, I want to point out my t-shirt today. Which
Never
is,
go against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
It's one of the classic blunders, only slightly lesser known than the first one, which is never get in the land war in Asia.
Inconceivable.
Why do you keep saying that word?
I do not think that means what you think it means.
All right, guys. Princess Bride. Jude, take it away.
1987, The Princess Bride, rated PG with a runtime of 1 hour 38 minutes. This had a budget of $16 million. What do you think this brought into the box?
That's it? Good for it. I'm going to say it brought in probably not a lot in the box office. I think this is a home video thing. I think this movie found its legs after. So I'm going to say it made $40 million.
Okay, Vader?
$65 million.
Okay. Had a budget of $16 million with a box office of $30 million.
Okay.
Not quite doubling its budget, but yeah.
Made a little
Well,
money.
one of the issues was that the studio that made this movie didn't know how to market it. And I can remember, I have a very
see
vivid
why.
memory of being a kid going to see a movie and seeing the trailer for this film. And the original trailer was the scene where Inigo's knocking on Miracle Max's door and Billy Crystal shows up, and it's just their like little exchange. And that was the trailer. It didn't tell you anything about the story. No love, adventure, action, like all this other stuff. It was just Billy Crystal.
It should have just been the old man saying it's got pirates and love and death and monsters and giants. Like,
and Fred Savage being like, that sounds okay.
yeah.
Is this a kissing podcast? Are we going to be talking about the kissing stuff?
The kissing in this. Yeah.
Oh man.
You ready for me to tell
I'm
you what it's
absolutely ready for your synopsis.
about? Okay. Never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line, unless you happen to be the dread pirate Robert, and that Sicilian is standing between you and your lady living happily in the fire swamp. Luckily, true love doesn't happen every day, but miracles do happen if you know a guy named Max with a witch for a wife. Miracle Max has just the thing to get the mostly dead back on their feet again. He's just got to make sure you're not trying to blave. But that would be inconceivable. Death cannot stop true love. Discuss.
This is damn near a perfect movie.
It really is.
But it's weird because it feels like a TV movie.
Yeah.
Like the charm that this movie has is that like the production feels like an old serialized TV show, but it's not. It's a movie, and it's like it I don't know. It just like melds all these different genres together. It's comedic. It's heartwarming. It's adventurous. It's got everything. There's nothing not to like about it.
I feel like I'm going to be a little bit.
Are you down on this movie?
I'm not down on it.
I'm going to take the wig.
But I feel like I'm going to be on my own little island over here today because it's. I don't think this is anything close to a perfect movie, but it's an entertaining and beloved movie. I made a poll this week on the social media, and the poll was, can you, basically it said something like, can you outgrow a movie that you loved when you were younger?
Yeah.
And it was overwhelmingly yes, was the response.
All 35 people.
No, there was actually a pretty good response from what we normally get. But I had a hard time enjoying this movie on this watch compared to what I did years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't really know why. It's very strange. It felt like it didn't feel cinematic. It didn't feel.
It felt like a TV show.
It felt like a TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they did that on purpose.
And they probably did. It felt like I was watching a Mel Brooks movie combined with a Monty Python movie combined with whatever it was they were trying to pull off. And I'm really not trying to shit on this show because it's a good movie. But there was just something in me that was having some issues. And if you asked me what the issues were, I would have a difficult time saying what they were.
Were you just not in the mood for it? Because I do think you have to be in a...
I do think that is maybe part of it, but I watch most of my movies by myself in the mid-morning, because that's when I have time to watch these. And it's just, if I was sitting here in Matt's viewing room with all of us and we were a couple shots in and we were, goofing around, it would be a completely different experience. But you got to be able to watch these movies, sober and with a normal brain. And if for some reason,
you do
sometimes, yeah. And it just I wasn't vibing with it like I thought I was going to.
That's weird.
I get it. I love, the Inigo. My name is Inigo Montoya. You kill my father. I mean, who doesn't know that quote? Yeah. Everybody knows that line, and it's got Andre the Giant. I'm Andre the Giant. I'm going to do Andre the Giant stuff. But at the same time,
I'll kill you now.
Yeah, it's one of the best sword fights in cinematic history.
Not very sportsmanlike.
I get the charm, I do, but there was just something.
That's weird, man.
Something missing. There was something that I wasn't picking up on this time.
Inconceivable.
I know, right?
Yeah, very much so.
I kind of feel bad that I wasn't vibing with it like I should have. But that's just kind of how I've been rolling lately.
That's weird.
I feel the same way about the next movie we watched too, and I'm going to get a lot of shit about it. Yeah, so
I got to get Jude's thoughts on this.
Yeah,
give me your thoughts on. Do you adore this movie?
I watch this movie probably once a year. If not once a year, then once every other year. This is in my regular rotation.
Absolutely.
I've also read the book twice.
So I got fooled by Costco. There was a leather-bound, beautiful engraved Princess Bride book. And I was like, I'm buying it now. I didn't read it. I didn't flip through it or anything. I just bought it.
Turned out to be a jewelry box?
No, it was fucking,
Okay.
like I read through it and it was weird. Like part of it was like diary entries from the author and like
Yes,
other
so-
weird shit.
No, that is the book.
That's the book?
Yeah.
Oh, I stopped like halfway through. I'm like, this is not the fucking story.
The book is called The Princess Bride by S. Morgenstern, something like that. And it's a tale of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's the title. And the book is written not by S. Morgenstern. I forget. But
it's an annotated book.
What does that mean?
It means that there was an editor who was William Goldman, who actually wrote the book, who goes in pretending that it's someone else's book, and he adds notes to it, like footnotes and stuff.
no, but that and that's the book. The book is written in a way that like it's this person outside of this novel giving their synopsis of it as it goes and telling the tale of like how they came in contact with it, what an effect it had on their life, and like how their dad used to read it to them. But it's all part of the book.
Yeah.
It's just it's a very weird narrative.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, it's a framing device, kind of like how in the movie you have the grandfather and the grandson
Right.
as the framing device for the film. And with the book, the framing device is that William Goldman, who's like one of the legendary screenwriters in Hollywood, he basically found this book by S. Morgenstern and basically annotated it to kind of give context to some certain things. It's almost like a director's commentary in the sense, but he is S. Morgenstern. Like he wrote this book, but he's pretending that it was someone else, and he's doing like a educational like deconstruction of it.
Well, I gotta say, I was really pissed off when I bought that book and I started reading it. And I was like, "The fuck is this trash? Like, I want the story. I just want the story in
I
written
want to know
form."
what's happening with you and your wife.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Like, I went to a museum with my father in Florence. I don't give a fuck. Like, give me the book.
Yeah.
You know. So I was really irritated when I bought
The
that book.
second time I read it, I scrolled through all of the Billy stuff, and just concentrated on
Is there
the Princess Bride
like
stuff.
an abridged version that just gives you the story?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's a bummer. I'm gonna make one.
The book is actually much darker than the movie.
Yeah.
You're just gonna edit out all the Peter Falk.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be a much better story.
Yeah, and the movie ends like 2/3 of the way into the book. The book gets real weird.
Oh, after they escape? Oh, cool.
Like, is this a kissing book? Is this a kissing story? Ugh. Yeah,
Anyway.
I get it.
Well, like we've already been quoting this movie before we even started this. Like it's so fun and quotable, and it's got a good layer of cheese on it.
Oh yeah.
Like when they're on the boat and Inigo Montoya is in the back and he's like, "You sure nobody's following us?" Because I just look back and I happen to see somebody. You're like, "Oh, it's probably a sailor out for a pleasant cruise in eel-infested waters." It's fine.
Like I am not going to sit here and deny the cultural impact that this movie has had.
Yeah.
We've all had Princess Bride quotes discussions.
When Kadish
All
gives
of
me
us.
notes on my editing, I'm like, I send him the GIF as you wish. Yeah, but it doesn't mean I love you. It's something else. But it's funny.
Yeah.
I was
You don't love me?
I was saying to Kadish last night, like I quote this movie more than I thought I did.
Yeah.
Like I say I shall be very put out.
Yeah.
Like all the time, and like when I was rewatching it for this, I was like, oh shit, that is where I got that from. Like I say things from this movie without even realizing it's from this movie.
I think people quote this movie who've never even seen the movie.
Probably.
Yeah. Like we would have driven you crazy, Alex, because last night we were watching it. Jude and I were literally like saying every single line.
I think I might have been right there with you guys because I can quote this whole movie too. One of the lines that I quote all the time, "Not to 50." Like anytime somebody doing something a little extra, I'm like, "Not to 50." Like it's fucking quotable as hell. It's funny. It's adventurous. It's fun. It's romantic. It's got everything. I love the fire swamp bit. You know, well, you talked about the sword fight. Let's talk about the sword fight first.
Great.
It's called the Chatty Duel.
The Chatty Duel. I do have a question about this, though, because it's always bugged me a little bit. Inigo Montoya goes to explain that ever since his father's death, he has dedicated his entire life to the art of fencing. That is the only thing he has ever done, and that's what he uses to pay his bills. That's what he uses, and it's all just to serve his vengeance.
Let it go, man.
And he goes up against fucking Wesley, the farm boy who for most of his life has just milked cows and got jugs of water. And he goes
He was
and
very buff.
he goes and trains with the Dread Pirate Roberts for 5 years, and he's better than Inigo Montoya. Come on.
Well, the funny thing about that is like Inigo even says like he's out of practice because like you know, it's been so long. There's not a lot of money in the revenge business,
Yeah.
so he's taking up these odd jobs, and so like he's not at the top of his game when he faces Wesley, which is one of the reasons.
The thing that's fun about this sword fight is it's not just the sword work, but it's just the back and forth banter between the characters. It's classic.
But
It's one of the best
also
things ever.
the score, like every
Oh,
time
yeah.
there's like a movement, like the score just like kind of like emphasizes it.
This is a movie like I'll start watching, but I'll watch this movie and I'll watch it up until the end of this sword fight
The
scene.
fight scene, yeah, when he knocks him
And
out.
then I'll go, I'm done. That's my favorite scene in the movie. Click. And I move on to something else. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie. It's like it peaks really early, and then it's just, you know, kind of a bunch of fluff shit.
Kind of
afterwards.
daughters around after that.
Yeah. You know, and that's the way I think
Okay.
that's a really good description of how I feel about this movie. It peaks with the sword fight, and then it just kind of slowly goes down.
Well,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
still
that the first half of this movie is so entertaining because it does everything you need to basically set up the character of Wesley, and you got that climb up the cliffs of insanity,
Yeah.
and that great exchange where it's like you're this big monolithic,
Yeah, here's this big colossus.
You're this mythical thing, and yet he gains, and he's like,
I'm
well,
carrying
yeah.
3 people.
He's only got himself.
Find myself a new giant.
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't say that,
no.
Fezzik.
And so they get to the top, and Vizzini, you know, like cuts the rope, and they think that, you know, like that's the end of it. And they look down the cliff, and Wesley has like grabbed onto the cliff, and he's like, he didn't fall, inconceivable.
Yeah. Why do you keep saying that word?
Yeah.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
And so like, you know, they leave Inigo behind to kind of finish him off, and Inigo's like kind of like, hey, I don't suppose you could hurry this up.
Dude, that back and forth is fucking amazing.
And
He's like,
Wesley's like, this is a lot harder than it looks.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, well, if I throw you the rope, I never trust a Spaniard. And he's like, I swear on the name of my father,
Okay,
you will reach the top alive. Throw me
Throw
the
the
fucking rope.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great exchange, and then like they have that little sit down, and you get some characterization for Inigo.
Inigo.
And I just love like when Wesley pulls off his boot and all these rocks just fall out of it because he was getting ready to fight with that. But the great thing about this scene is that this entire scene is actually the two actors, Mandy Patinkin and Cary Elwes, doing this scene. Like they're switching hand swords and stuff like
awesome.
that. And they worked with this legendary sword choreographer who basically they went out and they spent weeks like figuring out what the fight was going to be. And then they showed it to Rob Reiner, and Rob Reiner was like, He's like, can you make it 3 minutes? Because originally it was just 1 minute. And they're like, you want us to make a 3-minute sword fight? He's like, yeah. And so they went back to
Add
the
some
drawing
flips
board.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically the only time that they used stuntmen was when they had to do like jumping flips.
Yeah.
So like there were 2 uses of stuntmen in this, and other than that, it was all the actors doing it. And it was actually funny because Mandy Patinkin said, he's like, you know, I did all my own stunts in this movie. I did all my own fighting. And the only time I suffered an injury was when I was holding in laughter working with Billy Crystal.
Aw,
He actually bruised a rib because he was like trying hard not to
That's
laugh.
awesome.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love the beginning of this sword fight when they're just like clink clink.
Yeah. Well, they're testing each other out, right?
Yeah, I love that.
I love that this is a gentleman's fight.
Yes.
They're not out for blood. This is, hey, me versus you. Let's see what we can do here. And then they just they test each other out. They test their footwork. They keep going. And then as things progress, it's like, why are you smiling? I have a secret I haven't
And
told
you
you.
can see Inigo getting so excited. He's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, finally a worthy adversary.
Yeah, for sure. He's like, who are you?
No one of consequence.
No one's a
Yeah, he's like, I must know, get used to disappointment. And then he's just like, okay. But I love like the score in this because like, you know, as they're fighting, it's very adventurous, but there are these little tags where like, you know, like when Inigo kind of swings on that bar and the score just goes, you know, it's like very pathetic. And then like when Wesley does it, it's like,
Da-dum, da-dum, and then he lands. Yeah, that's great. I love this fight. I do agree. I think this might be the peak of the movie for me. This fight between the two of them is awesome. But
the Battle of the Wits is the peak for me.
Yeah, I can understand that from you. Yeah, that makes sense for you. The next thing is the fight with Andre the Giant. This was I don't want to say it's underwhelming, but it's not like the peak of the movie. It's not my favorite bit at all, but I do like that beginning where he throws the rock and like you can see Wesley's like, oh shit, it's the giant. And he's like, how would we fight each other like civilized people?
Well, it's funny because before we get to Andre the Giant, Vicini's there and he's like, when he shows up, hit him with a rock. And Vicini's like, that's not very sportsmanlike. and so like there's this great setup to like why Vicini like doesn't just kill him right away.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is that so Andre the Giant
Fezzik.
Yeah,
Fezzik.
sorry, Fezzik. Andre the Giant basically at this point in his career and lifetime, he had been suffering from various injuries from the time he spent wrestling, and so like his lower back was very messed up, and he couldn't hold anything. Like he just wasn't physically able to like hold stuff without being in excruciating pain. And so in this scene where Wesley has to like jump on his back and put him in a chokehold, all the shots with Cary Elwes in it, he's actually on a ramp. And he's like walking on this hidden ramp as they're doing that. But in the longer shots where like it shows him on the back, that's actually a dummy. That's not actually Cary Elwes. And you can even see in some shots where like Andre is working the head to like make the head move to make it look like it's real.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to know these things.
Well, I mean, at the end, when Buttercup jumps into his arms, where he catches her, well, it's real, but like she had to be on wires because like he literally couldn't hold this 90-pound actress.
Yeah.
I as a wrestling fan, I actually got to see Andre live one time at a house show.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's a big motherfucker.
Well, yeah, he's Andre the Giant.
Dude, he is legit a giant. He is 3 men. It's wild to see actually how big this guy is. So, and he was very much in a lot of pain at this stage of his life. And
this is literally the only thing I know him from.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen a few clips of him in the ring, but this is the only thing.
It's like I remember growing up watching him on like WWF cartoons, watching him on WWF. And it's funny because William Goldman, the writer of the book and the screenplay, he was a big wrestling fan, and when he saw like Andre the Giant in like Madison Square Garden or something like that, he wrote the character of Fezzik for Andre, and like that's who he pictured in his head. And originally, like he'd been trying to get this book made into a movie since like the early 70s, and he wanted Andre the Giant. And at the time, Andre just wasn't doing any acting, and so the people who were trying to get the movie made actually wanted to put in this little known actor named Arnold Schwarzenegger in the role, and it was kind of funny because like
who was a nobody then.
Yeah. He hadn't. I think he'd maybe done like Hercules in New York at this point, but like he wasn't very good with his English. But by the time that this movie rolled around, Arnold Schwarzenegger was too expensive to get.
Yeah.
And so like they went, oh, maybe we can get Andre the Giant. And so like that's how like they ended up with this.
I'm so glad they did. I don't think Schwarzenegger would have fit in this movie.
No, yeah. And like when Andre walked in, everybody was like, that's Fezzik.
Yeah.
Sure.
And what's interesting is that Rob Reiner, the director of this movie, so like he sat down and he recorded him saying all of Fezzik's lines like throughout like the entire movie, and they'd have him on little like audio cassette tapes. And so when they were doing rehearsals with Andre would wear these headphones and listen to Rob Reiner recite his lines, and he would just mimic that until he got it to the point where like, they didn't have to do any ADR. Like every time they shot with Andre, he just knew his lines because like Rob Reiner had walked him through how to say it, what to say, when to say it. And so like, he's not like a great actor in this movie, but with his like heavy accent and stuff like that, you're able to understand what he's saying.
Yeah. Anybody want to be that?
Yeah.
It was even in the wrestling world, Andre was never really great
at the showmanship part.
No, he was a showman, but he had such a thick accent and such a deep voice. I mean, it's like
couldn't hand him a microphone.
He was kind of hard to understand sometimes. I mean, it was just Andre. I mean, you just kind of like, okay, Andre's going to talk. It's like, oh, but it feels like it's like when Arnold speaks. We all kind of like go into Arnold translator mode. Same thing with Andre. It's like, I'm going to talk about things right now. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I understand him perfectly.
I didn't have to miss.
What was funny about Andre the Giant is he called everyone boss.
Yeah.
Hey,
he
boss.
just like, yes, but like didn't matter what your role was, he was just like boss.
Yeah. It's cool. I think he is a key element of this movie's endearment.
Oh, for sure.
Is that a right word? Anyway,
one of the funny stories Cary Elwes told in his autobiography on the making of this movie is that that scene where it's like he's just waking up from being dead. They're like behind this wall, like looking at the castle gate.
Yeah.
So like he said that at a certain point, Andre the Giant ripped this like 16-second long fart. where it was like one of those like whoopee cushion things where it was like, but it like went on for like a good 16 seconds uninterrupted. And him and Mandy Patinkin are sitting there. It's so loud, the entire crew hears it, and it shakes the set behind them because it's so powerful.
That's amazing.
And like when it finally stopped, there was just like this moment of silence. Everyone was shocked at like how powerful this fart was. And Rob Reiner went up and he was like, Andre, are you okay? And he's like, I am now, boss.
Yeah. If you ever want to like have a fun, kill a couple hours, go watch some of the biography stuff on streaming about Andre.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really interesting things.
He's a cool dude.
About how much this dude can drink.
Yeah.
And eat in his
like a can of beer in his hand is like tiny, like a little Lego.
It looks like this.
A shot glass, yeah.
That's what a can of beer looks like in his hand.
It's amazing.
And I have a shot glass in there,
Yeah.
Well, imagine a dude his size can drink like.
Didn't his daughter go into wrestling too?
No.
Well, Rob and Wright used to tell stories about like, because like a lot of times they were shooting out on location, it was kind of cold out, and he would put his entire hand over her head and it would like basically cover it. And that would keep her warm because it would trap all the heat in her head.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool Andre stories.
Yeah, Andre was a very, very key element to this movie.
But I got to talk about my favorite character, played by Wallace Shawn Vizzini, who is the Sicilian mastermind behind this whole thing. And I love like when they first introduce Vizzini, Inigo, and Fezzik. It's small, medium, large.
Yeah.
It's like they're just lined up.
We're three poor circus performers.
but the character of Vizzini was originally going to be played by Danny DeVito. Because the director Rob Reiner, like he was friends with DeVito and he really wanted to go after him, but they decided to cast Wallace Shawn because like I guess like his comic timing was just like perfect. But Wallace Shawn was constantly afraid that he was going to be fired because he's like, I'm not Sicilian and I'm not Danny DeVito. But he created one of the most like iconic characters out of this entire movie, I think, because everyone knows like like the classic blunders and you never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line. And the way he dies, it's the best death scene ever filmed, where he's just like he's mid laugh, he just like collapses. But I love that scene because the build up to it, where he's like, you must have studied, and in studying, that man is mortal, so I can clearly not choose the wine.
Oh, God. It was such a circular logic. It was driving me insane.
The dialogue in this movie is almost verbatim to the book, but the delivery of it gives it so much more just sentiment.
Character,
yeah.
He's like, your intellect is truly dizzying. He's like, wait till I get going.
Yeah.
Where was I? Australia. He's like, that's
yes.
right. But that whole scene with the Battle of Wits, like I know that a lot of people point to the chatty duel as like, the highlight of the movie. But I think the Battle of Wits is so much more interesting because like you really see Wesley do like the sword play, the brute strength, and then the Battle of Wits, and then that leads into the fire swamp. So like the first half of this movie is just brilliant. Like it's a wonderful. I do think that once they get into the pit of despair, it kind of like goes a little bit, like it slows down a little bit. But then storming the castle and all that good stuff. I love everything about this movie.
Yeah,
and,
I do too.
And the writer of this movie, William Goldman, he's a legendary screenwriter. He's a legendary novelist. He's a legendary playwright. He wrote some autobiographies about his adventures in Hollywood, which are also like.
So you're saying he's a legend?
Yeah, I'm saying he's an extremely like talented writer.
Yeah.
He's written some of the most iconic screenplays ever put to film.
Yeah.
Did he do Stepford Wives?
He did like a rewrite of that. I think like a polish of it. So this movie just has a very good DNA to it. Like all the actors perfectly cast. The director, Rob Reiner, he was coming right off of Spinal Tap. And it was actually Spinal Tap that got William Goldman to convince him that Rob Reiner was the right director for the job. Simply because like for a while there in the 70s, like his movie, The Princess Bride, had been put into turnaround so many times. And it was so close to his heart because he wrote it for his daughters, that he was protective of it, and he actually bought back the rights from the studios because he's like, you guys are just going to fuck this up. And so when Rob Reiner came along, he had to convince William Goldman to take a chance on him and let him direct this thing. And so like after watching Spinal Tap, he was like, I laughed so hard at Spinal Tap. I was like, this guy just gets the tone that I want to go for.
He took it to 11.
Yeah, he took it to 11. And Christopher Guest is also like the six-fingered man in this movie. And he was the one who's like, you fold it again.
That's that dude?
That's that dude.
What?
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's wild.
Yeah,
Holy
he's
shit.
the guy who says these
Yeah.
go to 11.
He pops in.
Whoa.
Movies, dude.
Okay, now I got to go back and watch Spinal Tap again.
And,
Holy
and
shit.
another great Spinal Tap reference is the composer for this movie. When Rob Reiner went to him, he was like, okay, tell you what, I'll work on this movie for free, but you have to put DeBurger's hat from Spinal Tap somewhere in the movie. And so if you look at Fred Savage's room, it's hanging up
Nice.
in there.
Nice.
And that was a requirement to get the composer to work on the movie.
I dig it. Before we take our break, I want to talk about the fire swamp real quick. This is, I think,
We could live quite comfortably there.
we can live quite comfortably. What I love about that scene, like the fire swamp's a ton of fun. It's got all, it's got the fire spurts, it's got the quicksand, it's got the ROASs.
I don't think they exist.
I don't think they exist.
I don't think they exist.
It's so fun and adventurous and cool. But what I really liked about that sequence was Wesley explaining exactly what happened to him the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I love that story. Like it's almost like a little mini movie within this movie. I'm like, I can imagine him going on these adventures and like being on the Dread Pirate Robert's ship and learning all the sword fighting and how to do that, like how to become the Man in Black. It's just, I love that sequence. I love how he's explaining it. And he's like, is everything making sense so far? And she's like, It was great. I love that stuff.
Yeah, there's a great story. I'll let Jude tell it about when her dress catches on fire.
Oh,
So when they were filming that scene, the author,
William
Goldman, was on set, and when her dress catches on fire, he freaked out and started screaming, "Her dress is on fire! Her dress is on fire!"
No
and
way.
Rob Reiner was like, "You wrote it that way, Billy," and he was like, "I knew that. Sorry."
Yeah, he like totally ruined the take.
Oh, no.
Because it was like a controlled burn. And so everyone on set knew what was supposed to happen except him because like, he just showed up and he thought that she was actually on fire. And so like he ran out there and he was like trying to put it out.
Oh, he went out onto the set and did it himself?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And
What a hero.
Yeah, and they were like, Bill, like this is supposed to happen. It's fun. And he's like, really? And he's like, you wrote the book, don't you know this? and he was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they were like, "You wrote it that way," and he was like, "Right."
So, a quick little thing about this particular scene. Growing up watching this movie as a young kid, what I used to do, as soon as Wesley grabs the vine when Buttercup falls into the quicksand and he jumps in, I used to hold my breath to see
I did the same thing.
see if I could save Buttercup the same way Wesley does. So he'd go in there and he'd jump in and I would sit there and hold my breath and wait for him to pop out and to see if I could do it for I still do it to this day. I did it when I watched it this week. I was like, I could save Buttercup myself.
I love it when they both come up and they both go,
And there's sand all over him and shit. Yeah, it's great. And she's like, but Wesley, what about the ROSs? He's like, and he's looking up and
Rodents of
he
unusual
just saw them and he's like trying to protect her and like, I don't want to freak her out. I don't think they exist.
And what's funny about that is that the rodents of unusual size were played by fun size people. Of
course they were.
It meets one of the trifectas that.
There's no
legs of the
boobs.
Trifecta, yeah.
There's no trifecta here.
Yeah, there's no, just
God, I hope not.
rats.
But it was funny because like they had one fun sized actor who was really good at the walking, then one that was really good at the scurrying. And there was a part where like Wesley's like wrestling with like one of the RUSSs, and Rob Reiner's like, I need it faster. Like, where's the guy who can scurry really well? And it turns out that he got arrested for drunken driving the night before.
Oh no.
Who did what?
Yeah, one of the midget actors who played the rats. And he tried to explain to the police, he's like, hey, like I'm on a movie, I can't afford to be like in prison. And the cops are like, you're in a movie, huh? What are you playing? He's like, a giant rat. and the production had to stop and go down to the jail cell and bail him out. Yeah.
Well, at least they did that. Good for them.
Yeah, and another funny thing is that Cary Elwes and Robin Wright, I should say, at the time they were like nobodies. Like nobody really knew who they were. Like she was on a soap opera, and he had done like one other movie. And when they were on set together, they got kind of into each other, and so like there was like a little on-set romance going on there between the two of them, and it helped kind of like with the chemistry, I think, but between the two. But it's just kind of funny. Like as soon as he rescues Buttercup, like he acts like he's going to slap her at a certain point.
Oh
put her in her
yeah,
place.
yeah.
And
It's like,
in the book,
He actually hits her in the book.
no shit.
Yeah.
Oh man. As
apparently their relationship's a little bit different in the book.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the book, she decides that she loves him one day. And basically like she has become the most beautiful girl in all the land. The count sees her and tells the prince like it's time for the prince to get married. He wants to choose like a beautiful bride. He wants the most beautiful. He has to have the best. And the count's like, you got to come check out this milkmaid. So they send people to go check out Buttercup. In the meantime, there's a countess with them. She's like an older woman, and she takes up a flirtation with Wesley. And Buttercup is insanely jealous and doesn't understand why. She goes home and she's like, oh shit, I'm in love with him. Lucky guy. So she goes and tells Wesley, and she like pours her heart out, and she's like, I've loved you for several hours now, and I love you more now than I even did 20 minutes ago. Like my love is just, aren't you so lucky that you get to be loved by me? And he shuts the door on her face. And she goes home and she's like bawling. She's like, I've never been rejected before. I don't understand this. Like all of the boys in the land have always just been throwing themselves at her, and she's genuinely baffled.
Wow.
And the next morning he comes to her and he knocks, and she's like, I'm not going to take you back, And he's like, I'm leaving because I want to marry you, and I'm going to go make a life for us, and I'll be back for you. And in the book, it's only 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the funny parts about this movie is like you're always wondering like, well, she grew up on a farm. How is she a princess? And in the book, they kind of explain that Humperdinck basically makes her the princess of a
like Hammerstein.
Yeah, of a made up kingdom. Like, he just grants a title to her.
He calls her princess in training. Yeah.
That's adorable. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break before we come back, and we're going to talk about the pit of despair. So we'll be
Don't
right.
even try to escape.
Don't even try to escape. Be right back.
Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, if you guys want to support what we do here and play a really fun mobile game, head over to saltynerd.com/DC and download a game called Dragon Champions on Apple or Android devices. And in the promo code area, type in our promo code SALTY to get a little bit of a leg up on your way to level 20. You guys get like some money, a couple new coins, and an extra character. And once you get to level 20, join our guild. Go and type in Salty Nerd Podcast in the guild area. It's ran by one of our patrons, JT. And we have a ton of fun. We go on raids once in a while. Matt Vader over here is level 80, and he's still cranking away. And Kadish, of course, is Dragon Champion, like massive level 80. He's been playing since the game launched. Massive level 80.
They had a raid today.
They did have a raid today. That's
right.
That English doesn't make any sense.
They raided today.
Sure.
Guild raids. I'm doing while you guys talk.
Anyway, join us at Dragon Champions. It's a lot of fun, and the developers help us out for the podcast. We want to return the favor. Where were we? Oh, yes. Pit of Despair.
So what's funny about the Pit of Despair is that the art director for this movie did like a bunch of stuff for the James Bond films. And the machine that they use in the Pit of Despair was originally meant to be a torture device for a Bond movie.
Wow.
And they adjusted it for this film.
It fits more in a medieval setting, for sure.
Yeah.
Not to 50.
Not to 50.
And they basically said that the hardest part about building that torture device was keeping the suction cups on Cary Elwes because they kept falling off. So like they had to like gaffer tape him to his face.
No.
So I've always wondered, and this like I'm already sold in the world that this exists in, so I never really bothered questioning it. But watching it this time around, as Salty Nerd Podcast, I was trying to play. I'm like, what the fuck does this thing do?
It still steals years from your life.
How? It's a water wheel that creates suction on your nipples. Like, I mean, people do this at freaking spas nowadays with the cupping thing with the blood. Like, it's supposed to be healthy for you to like draw blood or whatever bullshit they come up with to sell you packages. It is bullshit. It's 100% bullshit. Don't do that. Anyway, what does this thing do? How does it take the life out of you? Does it? Yes. Just, there's no explanation. It just does. Okay. All right.
Not to 50.
Not to 50. I love that he's like taking notes. Like, so I'm studying the cause of pain.
Please be honest.
So
This is
please
for
be honest.
posterity.
Yes. And he's like, how do you feel? Very interesting. It just writes that. I fucking love it, dude. It's so funny.
Well, you know what's great about this movie is so like there's this wonderful framing device of like the grandfather reading the story to his sick grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically everything that we're seeing that, you know, he's reading from the book is the grandfather's interpretation that he's presenting to his grandchild. And so a lot of this stuff, like, you know, it could be explained in the book, but the grandfather chooses to gloss over it just to get to the more exciting stuff for his grandchild. It's kind of like how he leaves out the kissing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point where they stop the movie because the grandfather is worried that the kid's getting too scared with the screaming eels. And he's like, you know, the eels don't eat her at this point.
Yeah, you looked kind of, you're very sick and you look kind of concerned.
I love how he words it too. He's like, they don't eat her at this time. Well, at this time? What do you mean?
and then he goes back and he's like, you hear that, princess? That was screaming eels. He's like, Grandpa, you already read this part.
Oh, and it's in the grandfather's voice, but it's through the characters in the movie. That's a great moment too.
In the book, it was sharks, not eels.
Oh,
yeah.
Sharks would have been better. Maybe they couldn't afford sharks.
I like the screaming eels.
Ill-tempered sharks.
The albino that works in the Pit of Despair.
God, I love him.
Yeah. So
He's hilarious.
They do that great thing. Judy, you do the voice better.
Don't even try to escape.
So
where am I? Don't even try to escape.
And he just clears his throat. He speaks just normal. But the actor who played that part, Mel Smith, basically
he looks like somebody from Spinal Tap or something like that. Was he in another movie?
Well, I don't know or not, but basically, like at the time, he was wearing colored contacts to play like the albino role.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know it, and neither did the costume department. But the solution that they used to clean the contact lens with, and this is a time where it was like thick glass in the 80s. He was allergic to the solution.
Oh no!
And so he was having these allergic reactions around his eyes that he was just in constant pain. And so like every time you see him on screen, he's just like miserable.
Dying.
Yeah.
Oh man, I hate that. When I used the wrong solution one time. I used a cleansing solution instead of just like the normal salt saline stuff. Fucked me up.
Yeah.
I can understand. It's terrible stuff. The Pit of Despair is great. The albino's great. The Death Machine is amazing. Fuck, I don't know what to say. There's nothing bad about this movie.
Yeah, one of the best scenes in this film is the trip to Miracle Mac.
Yes, let's talk about Miracle Mac. This is the endlessly quotable scene where you and I go back and forth. Shut up, witch!
I'm not a witch. I'm your wife. And I'm not sure I even want to be that anymore.
And it's funny because I think we have a different appreciation for Carol Kane now that, you know, Scrooged and Transylvania 26.
God, she was so horny in that movie.
I'll be nude when you come back. Fucking love her voice.
I do too, yeah. She's great. When she was dressed up as Madonna in that freaking maid's outfit, oh, holy shit. Like,
Liar!
Ever since Prince Humperdinck. Why'd you say that name?
Humperdinck.
It's so freaking fun, dude.
She's the best.
She's amazing.
Yeah, but I just love like everything Billy Crystal did in his scenes was ad-lib.
I knew you were going to say that. I never knew that. That's awesome.
Billy Crystal.
Mutton, lettuce, and tomato.
Yeah.
Where the mutton's nice and lean and the tomato's nice and ripe.
It was just him being Billy Crystal.
Yeah, it's just
pretty much. Yeah, but it was funny because basically, so Mandy Patinkin had to hold his laughter in when he was doing his scenes, and Rob Reiner, him holding in his laughter made him nauseous. So like he couldn't be on set when they were doing those scenes. Like he was literally outside watching on a monitor.
I can imagine
because he was laughing so hard.
Can you imagine being Wesley on the table, like trying to be dead and not laugh at what Billy's saying?
Well, what's weird to me is a lot of people watching this movie now,
They don't even know who
Billy Crystal is or
Yeah.
Carol Kane. And it's I think people are going to lose a little bit of that.
I don't know. I think our demographic is a little older.
No, but I'm just saying, you know, like when my grandkids watch this movie and they're at that age to watch this movie, they're not going to know who Billy Crystal is.
Yeah, but they don't have to.
They don't
because
have
the
to,
characters are there.
But Billy Crystal is just being Billy Crystal. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can see the same shtick on any of his old skit shows or SNL or you know, what was the movie where he's a cowboy?
City Slickers.
City Slickers. It's just Billy Crystal's Billy Crystal. He's one of those actors that just.
But he's great when he does.
He does him.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But I think he's going to be lost on the new generations that are going to
fuck the new generation.
I just love the scene in Miracle Max because like he walks around and he's like, oh, look at you, Mr. Smarty Pants. Turns out he's only mostly dead.
And a little bit of backstory between Max and his wife from the book is when he was going through like Miracle Guy school, you have to have a witch that works with you. So his wife would pretend to be a witch.
Oh, no shit.
And so now he just calls her a witch because it makes him look more credible. And he's actually a really shitty miracle man.
Oh, man, that's hilarious.
Which is why he got fired.
Which is why he got fired. Yeah.
The king's stinking son fired me.
But in the book, he's like one of the things that he was ever actually good at was working with the dead. And when he comes down and he's like, there's a dead guy upstairs. And his wife's like, you were always good with dead. Why don't you give it a shot?
And aren't there like different levels of dead in the book?
Yeah, it's sort of dead, mostly dead, and all dead.
That's awesome.
And Wesley's only sort of dead in the book.
Okay, so he's mostly dead in this one.
The whole thing about to blave, which as we all know means to bluff. He probably owes you money.
God, those rats are scary. There's two lines in this sequence that I adore, and it's when they first knock on the door and he's like, get out of here, I'll call the Brute Squad. It's like, I'm on the Brute Squad. You are the Brute Squad. Every time I laugh at that line, doesn't matter how many times I've heard it. And then the second one is when they're coating it in chocolate, and he's like, the chocolate coating makes it go down easier.
Wait, an hour?
Wait, a good hour. Like they pull out like the New Jersey accent for that bit.
No, it's the old Yiddish couple. That's what they were going for. Someone that we haven't even mentioned yet is Chris Sarandon as Prince Humperdinck.
Oh, I was gonna wait to get to him at the end, but I don't know if it's just because I was like paying more attention this time, but I always forget that he is the mastermind behind this entire thing. Yeah. He's the one who hired them in the first place to kidnap the princess. He's just trying to start this war. He doesn't give a shit about any of this stuff. Like, that's like a weird reveal that they do like way into the second half of this movie. And you're like, oh shit, this guy's an asshole.
Yeah, that's the guy.
That's the guy.
I love when he's like tracking Wesley, trying to find the princess at the beginning.
As if he doesn't know exactly what's happening.
Well, but also like, he gets to Vicini's body and he like sniffs it, and iocane powder is supposed to be odorless and tasteless. And he's like, this is iocane powder. I'd bet my life on it. Yeah. He's just like so perfect in like everything he does.
I wonder if it's a sham. Is that real? Does he really know all that stuff, or is he just bluffing the whole time?
I think he knows.
Yeah.
So he's smarter than
he's supposed to be a highly skilled tracker.
Yeah.
And so like all that stuff was just like over the top, like highly skilled.
He's a sentier.
He's a sentier.
But this odorless, tasteless poison, he's like, iocane powder.
So the attack on the castle is amazing. The whole Dread Pirate Roberts thing, that used to scare me when I was a kid. And they lit him on fire. I'm like, that's real.
Yeah, the Holocaust cloak.
That shit was scary when I was a kid. And I love that bit where he's like, Fezzik, get the gate. He's like, give us the key. I have no good key. Fezzik, rip his arms off. Oh, you mean this gate? That's funny every time.
Yeah, and I love how like Wesley, like, he's wiggling his thumb, and Andre's like, oh, you wiggled your thumb.
He's so proud of him. It's like, you just nodded your head. Don't you feel wonderful? And he's like, dude.
And the way he's like moving his head around.
When they do the hand thing and he's like, fucking love it.
One of the best parts of this movie is when Wesley is first fighting Fezzik, and he's just kind of like playing around with him, and he's like, are you just tooling with me? Fezzik's like, I just want you to feel like you are doing well. Yeah. I hate for people to die disappointed.
He's so nice. He's so nice.
In the book, so his father, once he becomes like this size, his father like had a normal job or whatever, but his father like is trying to teach him how to fight because he gets bullied all the time and for being so big. And Fezzik comes home and he's like crying and he's like, I keep getting bullied. So his dad is like, I'm going to teach you how to fight. And he's like, Dad, I don't want to fight. I just like, because he's so sweet and loving and he doesn't want to hurt anyone. And his dad's like, no, you gotta, come on, give me a punch. And he like punches his dad like across the room, and his dad quits his job and is like, you're becoming a fighter. And he like makes him go into the fighting circuit.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So another great scene in this is the wedding scene.
Oh, and marriage.
And they based that the priest on a rabbi that William Goldman used to know in Chicago, who had a speech impediment, and he was a very well-respected rabbi. But William Goldman couldn't sit through any of his sermons because he would just be laughing the whole time, and so he based this character on that, where it's just like marriage.
It's what brings us together.
Today. Love. Whoa, love. All right. So they raid the castle. I want to talk about this one scene before I forget, because it's one of the most heartwarming and crazy things, but I don't want to bring the mood down too much. But the actor who plays Inigo Montoya, when he goes down, he finally confronts the six-fingered man who killed his father. He's got the thing in his gut, and he gets that like second wind, and he starts doing his thing where he starts quoting that same line over and over again, freaking the guy out. So the actor who was playing Inigo Montoya had recently lost his father to cancer at that point in his life. And he said what really made me like dive into that moment, which arguably might be the best moment in the movie. He's like, when I was telling the six-fingered man, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. He was like, I just imagined that I was talking to the cancer that took my father. And I was like, when I heard that recently, like maybe within the last year or two, I was listening to an interview with him and I was like, holy shit. Like I'm getting freaking choked up now just thinking about it. Like that puts such a deeper meaning on that moment in the movie. It was crazy.
Yeah, like Mandy Patinkin, who played Inigo, like I've seen that same interview, and it's very heartwarming. And it's also one of those things where like he basically says that like people come up to me at least 2 to 3 times a day and say, "Hello, I'm Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And it's one of those things where it's set up early in the movie. And then like when the scene happens, like he just keeps like saying it over and over, and it became a meme before memes were even a thing. Yeah, because like you couldn't watch this movie in the 80s and walk out and not say that line. Yeah, and it's become so iconic. Everyone knows that line, and it's kind of funny because you'd think that Mandy Patinkin would be like kind of like
over it,
exactly.
The way that you say his name is driving me crazy.
How do you say it?
Mandy Patinkin.
Okay, Mandy Patinkin. But he, you know, he's kind of embraced it, and he's like, I love that. Like, I said something so iconic that everyone on the planet that sees me knows how to.
I really like when actors.
There's worse legacies out there.
Yeah. I like it when actors say that, because like there's two ways you could look at it. Like I know some of the more like nihilistic people will be like, oh, you just did one role. Like what have you done recently? But then there's actors like I've heard Mark Hamill say the same things. Like I did Luke Skywalker when I was 19. Yeah, I'm still known as Luke Skywalker. That's freaking awesome. Like I like that school of thought. Like I did that one thing 50 years ago and it's stayed with me. That's amazing. That's great.
I just realized today that I base my hello on hello. I am Inigo Montoya.
Did you really?
I think I did. Because that's my favorite part of that fight, when he's getting his second win back. Yeah. And he's like,
it's like his mantra.
My name is And he's like, stop saying that. And he's like, hello.
Another thing that I absolutely adore about the raid on the castle is once Wesley gets into the room and he's laying down there in the bed and Buttercup comes in and holds the knife and he's like, there's a shortage of perfect breasts in this world. Be a pity to ruin yours. And she's like, Wesley, gently.
Yeah, Wesley, why don't you hold me gently?
At a time like this.
That's all you can say.
Yeah, but what's great about that scene is that so the climax of the movie, you know,
it's a non-fight.
yeah, like typically like in a typically structured fantasy film, like you'd have the hero face off with the villain. And it's kind of funny because earlier on, the grandpa drops a spoiler on his grandson where he's like, oh, nothing happens to Humperdinck. And the kid's like, he gets away with it? He's like, let me read you the story.
This is bullshit. What kind of story is this, Grandpa?
I love it when the kid is like, Jesus.
and so like the scene where basically it's the final confrontation between Humperdinck and Wesley. And Wesley has that whole thing. It's like, no, to the pain. And he describes exactly what he's going to do to him. And then like, there's this great moment where like he stands up and he holds his sword. He's like, drop your sword.
And the music swells up.
So good.
Yeah. Perfect. And then like once Humperdinck surrenders, it's revealed that Wesley can barely stand.
Yeah. Chris Sarandon's like, I knew it.
I knew he was bluffing.
I knew it.
I knew he was bluffing. That's great.
But it's one of the most creative climaxes to a movie I think I've ever seen, because like, there's no real physical confrontation, but it's such a powerful moment where Wesley just dominates this king basically. And it's brilliant.
Well, he calls his bluff as a coward. He knew he was a coward.
Speaking of king,
Oh,
The king is so cute.
she kissed me.
She's like, I'm going to go kill myself. And he's like, oh, that's nice.
That's nice, dear. She kissed me. Fucking guy. The thing that I really, really appreciated about that scene between Wesley and Humperdinck was the insults that he was throwing at him. He's like, I'll make sure to use small words so you're sure to understand, you warthog-faced buffoon. It's like, that is the first time anybody in my life has ever insulted me. It won't be the last. It's so ripe. I love it, dude. It's good shit. All right, let's polish this up. The ending, they get away. Andre the Giant brings
Everybody
4
lives
horses.
happily
Everybody lives
ever
happily
after.
after. They kiss.
Yay.
It's one of the greatest kisses in history. Grandpa closes the book and goes home. Wonderful fucking movie. 5 stars in my opinion. Fucking great. Watch it anytime. Never gets old. The lines are quotable as hell.
5 stars.
It's a 5-star movie. What is it to you? You're like off your rocker today.
I think you guys are like just like living in your like nostalgia-filled little fantasy world.
What is it to you?
It's like maybe a 3.
Fuck you.
Maybe a 3.
Yeah, fuck you, Vader.
What?
That's inconceivable.
This movie it's good for the first 20 minutes, and then it just kind of goes off into this little fantasy little whatever little baby kitty realm, and I'm not into it like you guys are.
Vader's life is pain. Anyone who's telling you different is selling something.
Take that wig away, bro.
I get it. I understand it. I've never liked this
Bro.
movie like you guys have. Never have I liked this movie as much as you guys are gushing over it like it's the greatest fucking thing that's ever been put on film. It's not. It's a fun movie. It's a good movie to watch with your 9-year-old grandkids. you know, there's nothing offensive here. But it's not like I'm not feeling it like you guys have. I never have
Wow.
with this movie.
Wow.
And I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry at the same time. I get it. I've let you guys gush
all right, listen.
for the last 30 minutes, and that's fine. But I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I kind of want to go a little bit lower, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna give it 3 out of respect. So
listen, something happened one of our previous videos with Big Trouble in Little China, because I said I didn't get that movie.
Yeah, I
got
don't get it.
roasted in the comments.
I'm gonna get destroyed.
So here you go.
I'm gonna get flamed.
You're gonna get
straight to the bottom pit of
so
hell.
roasted in the comments, dude.
I know. I
Get
am.
'em.
And that's okay.
Vader took it to 50.
But I know I'm not the only person that feels this way about this movie.
I don't know.
That's
about
like I
that,
said,
buddy.
I've watched this movie lots of times, but once we get past the sword fight, I'm done. I'm over. And I think it's a special movie, and I get it. I understand people's love for it. It's just not a movie that I've ever connected with, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's just because
That's shocking.
Maybe it's the cheap production value. Maybe it's just, I don't feel like Billy Crystal's like really going outside of his box or anything. He's just being Billy Crystal and Carol Kane in makeup. It's just
Stop now. You
What- I
gotta
don't
stop.
care.
I prefer
I don't
her
care.
French maid outfit.
You
whatever.
gotta stop,
guys
bro.
do your thing, man.
Dude,
do
dude.
whatever.
Heard enough.
What is
3
this?
stars. 3.
You're insane.
Bring it. I
You're
don't give
insane.
a fuck. I don't give a fuck. So
Okay. Before I give you my rating, would you like to know what weird shit happens in the book after the ending of the movie?
Do we have time for that?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Wesley relapses.
What do you mean? Oh, he goes back into a coma?
Yeah.
He basically dies.
Inigo succumbs to his injuries and falls into a coma.
Oh, that's great.
Fezzik falls off a cliff and dies.
What?
Buttercup's baby gets kidnapped.
Wow. See, now that's a movie.
By who?
I don't know. I quit reading after that. I was like, I'm going to go with the book.
That's a movie. That's great.
I've read this
I'm
book
in.
twice, and I cannot get through, like,
You know, it always did make
The
me
rest
wonder.
of
I'm
it.
like, why is he fine with like 3 holes in him?
he's not.
He's not. He's
No.
gonna die
No.
in 10
He has,
minutes.
like, these weird coma dreams.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They actually, like, when they shot this movie, they made it just as dark as the book was, because the book goes pretty dark. Like, for instance, when Inigo kills the 6-fingered man, he literally carves his heart out of his chest while he's still alive. So, like, they shot it, like, kind of closer to how the book was. And when they got into the editing, the studio was like, you know what, we'd like to make this more family friendly. And Rob Reiner was like, yeah, I feel like it's too dark. I want to lighten it up a bit. And so they recut it from an R to a PG-13. not PG-13, PG.
PG.
And I think that was for the better because this is such a feel-good, wonderful fantasy movie. And by the time you get to the end, where the grandsons kind of come around, it's like, hey, Grandpa, can you come back tomorrow and read to me? And grandfather, Peter Falk in that great grandfather way, he's just like, as you wish.
As you wish.
And you know, throughout the book, you realize that means I love you. And I'm getting teared up.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it gets
Every
you.
time I watch this movie, I get choked up.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's 5 pits of despair.
Okay, 5 out of 5. Perfect. Wow. So there's like rated R version like floating around out there?
No, it's not floating around.
Oh, okay.
It's basically like their initial work cut had like a lot of the darker stuff in it, and they took that out.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and assume this is a 5-star movie for you.
Oh yeah, this is a 5 classic blunders out of 5.
You put your eyeballs back straight where they came from.
Straight to the back of my skull.
Like all the storytelling and filmmaking perfection aside, like I just love this movie. This is a personal favorite of mine. Has been since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I watched this movie so many times. I've studied it. It makes me feel good whenever I see it. And so for that reason alone, to me, it's 5 stars.
My spirit animal is drunk Amigo Montoya. Back with the beginning. All right, guys, that's it for Princess Bride, one of our favorite movies. For this freaking weirdo. Comment below how much you freaking want to roast Vader. Please. I can't wait to read them.
I don't care.
I'm so excited.
It's okay.
You know,
I already know I'm not alone because there's people in our own chat that are agreeing with me.
Vader puts on the wig and turns into a complete asshole.
Listen, I just said it wasn't a movie for me.
You almost gave it 2 stars.
It's down there. It's like watching like Never-Ending Story or something. You know, there's a lot of nostalgia there. It's not as good as it was when I was fucking 12.
Boo.
Okay?
Boo.
Throw your shit at me. I don't care.
Rubbish.
Rubbish. Filth.
Yeah.
Boom.
Fuck you.
The Princess of Slime.
Somebody has to be a villain.
The podcaster of the putrid.
Today it's me.
Humperdinck.
All right, V, where can they roast you in the comments?
You can roast me all you want at Matt Vader 74 on the Twitter and the Facebooks and the YouTubes and the places.
All right.
So yeah.
Cool. Jude?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram and on TikTok.
All right. Matthew Kadish, take it away.
You can find me at Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter. KadishBooks.com takes you to my Amazon page. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating. That really helps us out.
Somebody at saltynerdiscord.com tweeted hashtag I stand with Vader. Blocked.
Marshall is my boy.
All right, folks. Thanks for being here. Join the community. Head over to Discord. We have a lot of fun. And as always, stay salty.